I'm not anti-Nigeria, but I'm pro leave your comfort zone, leave Nigeria, go on. I think you deserve better. I've had the privilege of being to 78 countries now.
Is there any fear you have about traveling?
Fear of denial.
I'm on a campaign against South Africa. I applied for a visa to South Africa and they denied me.
If you have a couple who are who are planning to move abroad, I've always felt that I think one person should go first. I get people often saying, if everybody leaves, who will build our country? And my answer is always simple. I am Wakawaka doctor. I'm a medical doctor. I'm not Bob the Builder. I don't know anything about bricklayer or carpentry that will start building the country. Those who have the responsibility to build the country haven't done it properly, and that's not my role.
Your first video was made in 2020 after lockdown.
Yeah.
So what was it that people were hoping to do when they could not move around?
I think I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure how the video blew up, but I think because the video was not it wasn't a so-called popular travel destination or a jackpot destination. People would often love to move to the UK, the US, Canada, but this video was talking about France and how you could move, affordable travel means, and so maybe that's one of the things that made people watch. So
when did you start earning money from it?
I started earning the funny story because I remember when I started, what's the point of all this content creation thing you people are doing? I don't understand, Proco Doctor, what's the point of all this thing? Because I'm wasting my time, wasting my energy, and then he would tell me, just be patient, just be patient. So I think I got my first gig in 2022. I got my first gig in 2022.
You started this thing in 2020
Yeah.
and didn't get paid until 2022?
Nothing. In 2022, I got my first gig, and they're called Canada Choice Immigration Incorporated.
Right.
The guy just rang me up, his name is Michael, rang me up and said, we want to work with you, blah, blah, blah. I didn't even know how much to charge, chef.
You didn't have a rate card?
I didn't have a rate card, nothing. I was unprepared, really. But I just said, okay, because again, money wasn't a motivation because I had my own full-time job. So in front of it was about helping people. And so if money had to come from it, it would be just, on the side. And so the guy rang me up and said, okay, we want you to promote us. And that's how I kept promoting, and more brands. I think the more I gained, visibility, more brands started coming, and then started making money of content creation.
So you and Dad are close?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. You say your mom passed. I'm sorry about that.
She passed 5 years ago, cancer, breast cancer.
I'm sorry about that. That must have been tough.
Yeah, it was. It was very tough. We had a very close relationship, and for a while, being a doctor, I had to deal with some sort of guilt, thinking, because I kind of, at the back of my mind again, I always felt that maybe I could have done something. You just have this guilt that maybe you could have done more, but there was nothing I could do. I remember that she had cancer for about 18 years.
Oh, wow.
So she had cancer 18 years before she passed.
Right.
And then she had surgery, she had treatment, and then the cancer was in remission. Right. And just 5 years ago, it came back and was, it started with a cough. And she went to the hospital, they did an x-ray, and at that point I felt I should have asked and said, let me see the x-ray. Because they did the x-ray and the person who interpreted the x-ray said it was just cough. There was nothing, the heart was fine, the lungs were fine, and they were just treating cough.
Wow.
But if I had seen the x-ray, I would have seen that there were, nodes and that the cancers are actually migrated to the lungs, and then maybe treatment would have started earlier, intervention would have started earlier, and maybe would have given her more time to stay with us. But I dealt with that guilt for a while.
Yeah.
I still miss her, so it was very painful. Yeah.
I mean, at some point, did you manage to get to the point where you realize that this guilt isn't valid because you couldn't possibly look at your mother's health reports every time she has a cold?
And the funny thing is, I'm in psychiatry. Okay, that's the branch of medicine I work in. So I started working in psychiatry in 2018. And so it took me to start seeing patients and reading more books on psychiatry and understanding how psychiatry works, to then tell myself over the years that, look, this is not your fault. There was no way you could have, stepped in. It's life. It was time for her to go. She lived a very good life. You now have to continue her legacy and stuff like that. So that was how I was able to deal with it.
Yeah. I want to talk about that in terms of psychiatry, but for a bit, has there ever been a time that you regretted moving?
Moving abroad? Never. Never. I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah,
And there's nothing anybody can tell me.
Right.
I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah.
I get people often saying, if everybody leaves, who will build our country? And my answer is always simple. I am Wakawaka doctor. I'm a medical doctor. I'm not Bob the Builder. I don't know anything about bricklayer or carpentry that will start building the country.
Yeah.
Those who have the responsibility to build the country haven't done it properly, and that's not my role. Okay, but at the end of the day, I still always tell people that moving abroad, migration has to be closed. It's a loop that has to end. You have to close the loop, and so if you move abroad, you can stay abroad for as long as you want, but you've not migrated effectively or properly if you don't close the loop, which means that maybe staying abroad for 30 years, in your 50s and your 60s, you come back home. Not home to just retire and stay, but home to affect something. So whether you're affecting your family unit, you're affecting your local government, you're affecting your state government, you have to affect something, and then you have effectively migrated. So I don't regret moving. I wouldn't have moved. In fact, I never wanted to move. I was always pro-Nigeria, but circumstance now, and I make crayfish bend, so I had to take it. So, but no regrets at all, no regrets.
You say you've always been pro-Nigeria?
Yes.
So when people say, does that mean that you're anti-Nigeria now?
And at the moment,
Yes.
I would not want to say I'm anti-Nigeria, but I'm pro move from Nigeria and go and experience better.
Yeah.
Because again, let's take passport strength, for instance. The Nigerian passport is the 89th strongest passport in the world.
Yeah.
You can only see 45 countries visa-free. The countries you can see visa-free from Nigeria, they're in 3 categories.
Yeah.
Those along the West African border, that are close neighbors, desert, and water. Those are the countries you can see. They say you have free Nigerian passports. You can go to Barbados for free.
Yes.
That's Caribbean island.
Yes.
But you have to fly through the US, so you have to get visa. Or you go to Fiji. Those are the countries. Samoa. Those are the countries you can go visa free.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So why would I want people to remain the same and stay there when they can actually experience better? You get a second passport that gives you access to loads and loads of countries.
Yeah.
You, like you said at the start, you get to experience life in a different dimension. So until these issues are fixed back home, it is not my responsibility. I am doing my own responsibility, my own CSR, by encouraging people to leave, because migration in its own sense also has economic value. All right, remittance that comes from abroad, helps improve. And every country that is developed, every developed country has been developed off the backs of migrants anyway. So you look at the US, look at the UK, look at where people want to go. It's migrants that help people.
Yeah.
The doctors, the nurses, the teachers. I told a story last week. I said, when Nigeria was Nigeria, when £1 was, 1 naira, or when even 80s, who were the mathematics teachers and English teachers in Nigeria? They were the Ghanaians, the Indians.
Yeah.
Now
that's what migration is.
Now Nigerians, they teach Nigerians. Yes.
Yeah.
So migrants, when you want to know that the country is working, migrants are there. People come to develop the country for you. So I'm not anti-Nigeria, but I'm pro leave your comfort zone, leave Nigeria, go and I think you deserve better.
Right.
Go and experience the world. And maybe you come back and see what you can do. Yeah.
It was one thing that you were going to say to somebody who wanted to travel, that is the first thing they should think about or consider, what would it be?
Well, I would say it's not just one thing, but a group of things, and you have to ask yourself why, when, how, and where.
When, why, when, how, and where?
Yeah, you need to ask yourself, why do I want to move abroad? Where do I want to go to? How do I want to go? And when? So you must have a time frame. You must have a reason why you want to do it. It's not just because everybody's moving abroad, you want to move abroad. There must be a reason why. How do you want to achieve it? Is it through schooling? Is it through job opportunities? Is it through fellowships and internships? Or is it even through marriage? If you want to marry white man or white woman, you know. So you need to ask yourself this group of questions before you make that decision.
Right. Let me ask you this group of questions. You answered the first one. Now I want to ask you. Yes, I'm coming to them. No, their whole time is coming. But I mean, if you're comfortable, obviously. So, because I want people to understand, the process. And it's also one thing when somebody has already left. But it's another thing when the person is in the process. Now people are able to identify with the process. So you said why is the economy. Yeah, the economy. Now, where, when? Where do you want to go? When do you want to go?
Well, my first choice was Canada. Yeah, and I was planning to go next year.
Okay.
I was.
Yes.
Right now, I don't know.
Going this year?
For some funny reasons. I'm not sure.
Are you moving it closer? Are you moving it further? Are you moving it closer to now? Is it you want to make it earlier than next year? You want to make it later?
I may change my mind for personal reasons about traveling entirely.
At all, right?
Yes.
Okay. Was it have to do with love back for Nigeria? Is that okay? Let's stay here and build it.
Not really.
Right.
Not really. Not at all.
Not at all. Right. So it's a personal reason.
Yes.
Right. And it's something you can't share, I'm assuming.
You're so nosy. You have to know. Something related to being a woman.
Love and light.
Love, family, stuff.
I think it's a good enough.
We know where that is.
We know where that is going. But practical reason, does that change the reality of the economy, though?
Obviously, it doesn't.
Right. So why would you make that choice to delay something that's for your own economic growth in order for whatever this thing is that you hinted at?
Family is as important as money, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So family is as, if not even more important
than money.
I like that. That's, but I'm going to come to it, but that's one of the things that people struggle with, isn't it? When they want to japa.
Moving with family.
Yes, moving with family. Either the husband is here, the wife is there, or the wife is there here, the husband is there. And all those issues is not going to come back. And then also, what is a marriage if two of you are not? I mean, let me even ask. People often say, "Are you married?"
No.
Okay, right. Because you are coded. So, but that's a real thing. People say, how can it be a marriage if one person is here, other person is there? And some people just say, of course it can be a marriage, but it's just more difficult. Or even when you are starting, you should at least be physically together. Then later you can decide to go. So people that have those concerns.
It's a huge concern, and I get people who ask me that question. And oftentimes my first answer is always, look, I'm not qualified to give that advice because number one, I'm not in the institution. I can't tell you. Whatever I'm going to share will be based on experience I've pulled from other people or what I think might just be right. And so if you have a couple who are planning to move abroad, I've always felt that I think one person should go first.
Right.
And the reason is because you're going to move to a new country where you don't know anybody. It is difficult starting afresh. So you need someone to go, at least prepare the ground, look for accommodation, look for work. If you have kids, you have to think about school, you have to register with the GP and stuff like that. You can't have two people going to school, dragging 3 children with childcare and all that. It's difficult to manage. So I think one person should go and at least spend 12 to 18 months surveying the land. And then, because again, if you travel to most of these countries, they respect the family unit, isn't it? So if you apply and say, oh, I want family reunification, I want my wife or my kids to join me, you're going to get it. But I think it's always good for someone to go beforehand and prepare. That's always my advice. But again, you have this, people who I must die with my husband. I must die with my wife. You know, I cannot go without him. Oh, I will not be able to breathe. All those kind of people. So if you fall in that category, then you have to just.
So it depends on you.
Yeah, you have to
You're
find
the kind of person that is important.
Yes,
to,
you have to find a way to make it work. Yes.
Yes. People borrow money to Japan to travel abroad.
Yeah.
Especially for school. School is the one that is most popular. People go to school. I mean, to be honest, these days, I've seen enough examples that I encourage people who don't have the complete money to go. Because once you are determined enough, even though sometimes it might be brutal on your mental health, so you need to be careful about that. But once you have money, most of the people who are resourceful, once they start school, the schools are often flexible enough to help them through
payments,
the journey. But it's also just excruciating sometimes. So would you advise people who take a loan to travel to do that?
For me, I always say that taking a loan, especially for studies, has to be the last resort. Has to be the last resort. Because again, and you look at people who take loans, there are people who are hell-bent on moving to Canada or the US. Because you find people that say, these are the only countries, I don't want to go to any country other than the US, other than Canada, other than the UK. It's either this country or I just stay where I am. And there are people like that. So these kind of people, and they don't have the money, right? But they want to go and maybe get a master's or get a PhD. Then those kind of people, you can encourage them and say, okay, as a last resort, take a loan. But if you're open-minded and say, okay, I don't have the money, but I just want to move, then you can look at, other countries that will not, involve you breaking the bank. So as a rule, taking loans is a good thing, but I always say let it be the last resort.
And it's just an interesting thing because the UK, the US, and Canada are not the only 3 countries in the world now. Which evil spirit? Because you can say you have an answer to that.
I think people just like following the crowd.
That's it. Yes, and the crowd. Most of the movies we watch are from these 2 places.
American movie.
Yes, and Canada has heavy PR. For PR.
I mean, I've had the privilege of being to 78 countries now.
Wow.
Yeah, and so for me, I'm always very shocked when people say it must be the US, it must be the UK. Why? So again, it comes to the root question: why do you want to move abroad? Because, for instance, the US passport is the 8th strongest passport in the world.
That means it's not the number 1 country.
Singapore, Japan, Finland, Sweden, these are stronger passports. So for someone who wants to move abroad to get a stronger passport, why are you rushing to Canada or US or UK when there are like other countries that are stronger? So these are some of the things.
Why are you laughing? I don't agree with you. You're like, he's playing here. I'm coming to you. You have to be thinking about the answer. So now I'm coming back to you.
these are some of the things that I mean, it's debatable, and I think that's the good thing about life. It's a spice of life for us to have conversations about this.
Yes, sure.
But I always say you cannot restrict yourself to just these countries. I'll give an example, a popular example of one that I talk about a lot of times: Brazil. You see, moving to Brazil is free, right?
Okay.
Education in Brazil is free for foreigners.
Really?
Free education, all right? But when you tell someone, go to Brazil, what's the difference between Brazil and Nigeria?
A lot.
You are frying into fry pan and fire. But Brazil, they have 24-hour electricity in Brazil.
Yes, let's start with that.
Let's start with Brazilian passports. You can visit 170 countries without a visa. If you give birth in Brazil today, the baby gets a Brazilian passport, the parents get an automatic PR. 2 years?
Really?
Yes. 2 years, they apply
And
for
these people are following you. Even myself, I did not know this. I'm following you.
2 years. 2 years later, you apply for citizenship.
Really?
Everybody in Brazil, whether you're a foreigner, resident, you qualify for free health care.
Right.
These are advantages. So you must be able to answer that question. Why? Why do you want to move? So it's not because, what is in Brazil?
Yes.
And there are fine women in Brazil, if that's what you also want. So,
In addition to all.
in addition to all.
It's like, even Cuba, there are countries where I have a
Yes.
friend.
Yes.
My auntie, so I moved to Cuba. I'm like, auntie,
I know, I made a post last week talking about countries where you can give birth and end their passport.
Yes.
So I mentioned Cuba. And one of the comments, someone said, these stupid content creators,
they always say that.
imagine mentioning Cuba.
Yeah, they say that.
And I asked him, I said, where are you from?
Uh-huh.
Nigeria.
Yes.
Cuba passport, you can visit, travel 99 countries, visa free. And when we talk about 99 countries, they are not deserts.
And water.
They are good countries.
Yeah.
Your country is 89th in the world.
Yes.
Before I even type my response now, NEPA can take light. So what are we talking about? So what is your problem?
You are the one that demolished a bit. Okay. Yes.
So I mean, though with this stereotype and but again, it leaves room for an interesting conversation.
Is there any fear you have about traveling?
Fear of denial. Always been a problem.
Yeah.
Fear of denial.
And it's a real fear. Let me tell you, that's why I'm on a campaign against South Africa. We applied for a visa to South Africa, which I don't do unless you're inviting me for a conference or etc. And they denied me because they said I booked hotel Cape Town, booked.
And you're going somewhere else. Yeah.
And I thought it's a ridiculous thing because how do you know that I don't plan to enter Cape Town, visit a friend, take an internal flight to Joburg? That is first world problems. But apply the second time, I had such anxiety because I didn't even buy my ticket. Even though I knew I had a reasonable chance of going. Because I'm like, what if they deny me again? So I think there's a particular psychological condition when you are rejected the first time.
Anxiety,
you are not, especially if the rejection doesn't make sense.
And I think it's why there's a strong campaign now, and we have to lend our voices to that as well. A borderless Africa. Yes, we need to promote a borderless Africa because I don't understand why. I'll give you. I always have travel stories. So I was traveling to Vietnam.
Okay.
And I was stuck at the airport for about 6 hours. So I met this guy who is from Mauritania. He and his wife were going to Seychelles. Now, if you look at the map of Africa, why does a guy going from Mauritania to Seychelles have to fly to Turkey, then come back to Seychelles?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Makes no sense.
The only other flight they could have taken would have been Kenya Airways,
Right.
but that flight only flies once a week. So these are the issues we have.
Yeah.
Flights are too expensive within Africa.
Yeah.
I think 54 countries can come together and say, so long as you're an African citizen with an African passport, move
Move
freely,
inside.
sell freely,
Yes.
do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
It's your continent.
Yes.
And until we strive to achieve that,
Yeah.
and it's one of the things holding Africa back,
It is.
to be honest.